Good morning from Athens, Greece. Hope everyone is doing well this Friday. Let's get to some news. We've got three news stories that I want to talk about. Ukraine and Moldova getting EU candidate status. I want to talk a little bit about what's happening in the Donbass, and then do an update on NATO, Finland, and Sweden. And then we'll do a clown world. We'll do a clown world retraction. This will be a first, a clown world retraction. So let's begin with the news that Ukraine and Moldova have been granted EU candidate status. So this decision was taken yesterday afternoon. Moldova and Ukraine are now candidate countries to enter the European Union. Georgia was denied. Albania was denied. North Macedonia was denied as well. So obviously, Georgia, North Macedonia, and Albania, they need to ramp up their anti-Russian rhetoric, because that is what will decide a country's entry into the European Union. How anti-Russian are you? That is how the EU now makes decisions with regards to becoming a candidate country. We have done many videos on this channel and on the Duran where we have stated that becoming a candidate country is really no big deal. It just means that now you are on a 30-year journey, a torturous journey towards trying to become a member of a dead, ineffective, deeply corrupt institution. We'll take anybody. European Union. That is the new mantra of the EU. We will take anybody, because the way they decided on Ukraine and Moldova was purely political. It had nothing to do with their economic policies, their finances, their governance, none of those things. This was a purely political decision, 100%. Georgia is more suited for the European Union than Ukraine and Moldova. If you just look at which countries are more stable, which countries have a better fiscal policy, have better governance, are more democratic, if you want to use that word. If you go by those standards, then Georgia is much more, is better positioned to become an EU candidate country than Moldova, and definitely than Ukraine. But because Moldova and Ukraine are on the front lines of fighting Russia, or Ukraine is on the front line of fighting Russia, Moldova is a country that they would like to get involved in fighting Russia. Well, they had to allow them into the EU purely for political reasons. This is not me saying that. This is French President Emmanuel Macron admitting as much. Granting Ukraine and Moldova the status of candidate for EU membership is, and I quote, a political gesture that sends a strong signal to Russia, French President Emmanuel Macron said on Thursday. The EU's recognition of the European perspective of Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia is a strong signal towards Russia in the current geopolitical context. This is what Macron said during a press conference in Brussels. Granting candidate status to Ukraine and Moldova sends a very strong message, Macron added. We owe this to the Ukrainian people. They're fighting for our values, Macron said. From day one of this conflict, Europe has been reacting in a quick, historic, and united way. Firstly with the sanctions, then macroeconomic, military, and financial support, and now by this political gesture. As Van der Crazy said just 4 days ago, and as Mark Rutte, the Prime Minister of Netherlands, said just 1 week ago, Ukrainians are fighting, not for Ukraine, they're fighting for the EU. They're fighting for, as Van der Crazy said, the EU dream, as Mark Rutte said, because Europe and NATO doesn't want to take on Russia. And now, as Macron said, they're fighting for EU values. The fact that Macron said that this is a conflict that Europe has been reacting in a quick, a historic, and united way, firstly with sanctions, which failed, then macroeconomic, military, and financial support. Macroeconomic support has failed. Military support, the European Union has been demilitarized by Russia, demilitarized. Poland, Germany, Greece, Bulgaria, all these countries, even the UK, which is out of the European Union, supposedly out of the European Union, they've been demilitarized. UK officials are saying that they have no more weapons in their stockpiles. That is what, let me pull it up. That is what many UK officials are now saying. UK weapon stockpiles drained by Ukraine deliveries. It could take years for the UK to replace weapons that it has funneled to Ukraine amid the ongoing conflict with Russia. The chief of the Defense Staff, Admiral Tony Radakin, has admitted. He made his remarks on Wednesday as he spoke before a parliamentary committee. So all of these countries in Europe have been demilitarized by Russia. So everything that Macron says with regards to how the European Union has reacted with regards to Russia's special military operation have been one big failure. And do I even need to get to the financial support of Ukraine and the financial situation of the European Union? We have another EU country that is sounding the alarm with regards to gas and energy, and that EU nation is Ireland. Fuel rationing in Ireland could be a reality in the autumn. The nation's EU Commissioner, Malreed McGuinness, has warned, adding that the country is expected to face major energy risks in the upcoming months amid the ongoing conflict in Eastern Europe. We're trying to make sure that when it comes to increased energy risk in the autumn and winter, that we're ready for it, McGuinness said in a Wednesday interview with the Irish Mirror, another country that is now sounding the alarm with regards to energy and energy rationing. Energy rationing in Ireland. Who would have ever called this 6 months ago, that Ireland would be considering rationing energy? So Macron's statements are complete BS. I don't have another word for it. Just complete fiction. Everything that he's saying in his statement with regards to how the EU has reacted to the conflict in Ukraine, every point is a failure. Economic, sanctions, military, and financial. Failure, 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 and failure. All 4 points. European Council President Charles Michel called the entry of Ukraine and Moldova, called it a historic moment and a crucial step on Ukraine and Moldova's path towards the EU. And Olaf Scholz said 27 times yes. Here's to good cooperation in the European family. Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo also praised, get this, the symbolic message of the EU's decision. Not the practical message, not the realistic message. We're not living in reality. This is all about sending a symbolic message. The symbolic message of the EU's decision. But the Prime Minister of Belgium noted that this doesn't mean Kiev would be joining the bloc anytime soon. That is a process of many years with a lot of reforms, which will be very difficult. Euronews, the EU propaganda media channel Euronews, described it as lengthy, complex, and often torturous. Sounds like a fun process for Ukraine and Moldova. Good luck with that. The European Commission is demanding Ukraine carry out 7 major reforms by the end of the year, including implementing a law meant to curb the excessive influence of oligarchs in the economy and the protection of national minorities, which presumably could refer to Russian speakers or ethnic Hungarians in the west of the country. So the EU is now going to require Ukraine and Moldova to rein in their oligarchs, their oligarch class. Well, what the EU actually means is get rid of your oligarchs so that we can install our oligarchs. That is what the EU actually means when they say to remove the influence of oligarchs. As far as protecting national minorities, where presumably they could be talking about Russian speakers or Hungarian speakers, I don't think the EU really cares about Russian or Hungarian speakers. If there's one thing we've learned since this crisis began, it is that the EU has nothing but contempt and hatred towards Russian and Hungarian speakers. I don't think they're going to be caring too much about the persecution of these minorities in whatever is left of Ukraine, because Ukraine is not going to be the Ukraine of the candidacy process, is not the Ukraine that we knew before the special military operation. Ukraine has so far lost around 25 to 30% of its territory. That territory is not coming back, and they're going to lose a lot more as the months continue. So when we're talking about Ukraine, we don't even know what kind of Ukraine we're talking about. We don't even know if Ukraine is going to exist in 6 months to 1 year's time. We just don't know. And we don't know if the European Union is going to exist in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, because it's going to take about 30 years for this candidacy process to be completed. Unless, of course, the European Union once again makes a symbolic political gesture and just admits Ukraine and Moldova into the European Union in order to once again stick it to Putin. But we just don't know if the EU is going to be around. One thing's for sure, when you see institutions like this start to make these types of political decisions, not decisions based on making the union stronger, not decisions based on making the citizens of the EU better off, to make the citizens of the EU and the bloc more prosperous. These are political decisions that are being made which will harm the overall health of the bloc. And so the EU has stopped making decisions for the betterment of their citizens, and they're just now making decisions for the betterment of the globalists that puppeteer them. And so the minute you see institutions go down this path, you know that it's over. It's over for the European Union. Stick a fork in them. They are done. The only question now is, how long is it going to take for the collapse to occur? Because if you look at the trends that we have seen so far in the last 3 to 6 months, we have seen that every single action the European Union has taken in order to fight Russia has led to complete disaster. From the military, from the economic, from the sanctions, even the political. When you look at coalitions collapsing in Bulgaria, in Estonia, there's going to be a collapse in Germany, there's going to be a collapse in the UK, even though it's not part of the European Union. There's going to be many governments in the EU that are going to collapse. When you look at all of these outcomes from trying to stick it to Russia, this decision of letting in Ukraine and Moldova into the European Union in order to stick it to Russia is going to have the same effect. It's going to boomerang back at the EU, and it's going to boomerang back with terrible, devastating results. So finally, my final thought on this, and then we'll move on to, let's cover NATO, and then we'll talk about the military situation in Ukraine. My final thoughts on this is you have all these EU leaders, Macron and Schultz, and the Belgian Prime Minister, and then you have Van der Crazy and Michel. All of these people are virtue signaling the political victory of allowing Ukraine and Moldova, specifically Ukraine and Moldova, into the EU. And boy, it must irk Georgia, Albania, North Macedonia, specifically Georgia. It must really irk them to know that you're better qualified on paper to enter the European Union, but they're not going to let you in because you weren't belligerent enough towards Russia. It must really, really irk the leaders of Georgia. But all of these leaders, they're virtue signaling the success of what they have done, instead of sitting down and trying to figure out how they're going to prevent energy rationing, how they're going to prevent inflation, how they're going to prevent the the economic collapse that is about to hit them when the summer ends. The European Union, they should not be expanding. The European Union should be downsizing and should be undergoing some sort of restructuring. If this was a company, if the European Union was a corporation, the board members would be looking at the European Union and they would say, you guys have no product to sell. You have no products anymore of value to the consumer. Your management is god awful. You're losing money. You're in debt. You're bankrupt. And you're expanding into markets that provide us no benefit, no competitive advantage whatsoever. That is what a company, if this was a board of directors and they were looking at the EU as a company, that is what they would say about this company. And what they would do is they would do the exact opposite of expanding. What the board of directors would say is, you know what? They would say, we need to downsize. We need to start laying off people. We need to start removing countries. I don't know, say removing offices, closing down branches. We need to start restructuring, downsizing, and getting our house in order. And trying to figure out a valuable product to deliver to the people and trying to figure out how to become solvent again. That is what someone would say if you looked at the EU as if it was a corporation. They should be removing states, not adding states. There are so many countries that the European Union should start throwing out. Get rid of them. Start downsizing. Get back to your core mission, which was in essence just a trade and travel union. That's all it was. Travel freely, work freely within the EU, and trade with less barriers. Get back to your core message and your core mission. Anyway, that is enough of that. I'm talking about the EU, which is the political arm of the military institution known as NATO, the military alliance known as NATO. And the meeting in Spain is coming up. I think it is coming up on June 26, if I'm not mistaken. I always get these dates mixed up, 26 and 29. I believe it's on the 26th, but it could be on the 29th. Anyway, we're going to have the meeting of NATO members, and you're going to have the big vote as to whether to allow Finland and Sweden to join the alliance. And Turkey is the holdout. They have held firm on their no vote. They have clearly spelled out their terms in order to get a yes vote. Finland and Sweden, they are not agreeing with the terms. And we have seen the rhetoric really start to die down with regards to allowing Finland and Sweden into NATO in order to stick it to Russia. Just 4 or 5 weeks ago, that's all we were hearing from NATO and from the European Union and the United States. We're going to allow Finland and Sweden into NATO, and it's going to be another big blow to Putin. You see, Putin's military operation in Ukraine is a failure because instead of weakening NATO, he has strengthened NATO because now NATO is bigger and badder than ever before. That is what we were hearing nonstop from the BBC and from Sky News and from the New York Times and CNN. All of that has completely disappeared. And it was all shut down by Erdogan and Turkey. Erdogan and Turkey completely shut it all down. And they said, look, if you want our yes vote on Finland and Sweden, you have to do A, B, C, D, E, da-da-da-da-da. And NATO, the US, the EU, Finland, Sweden, they completely balked. They said, we can't give you everything on this list. And Turkey said, well, you don't want to give us everything we're asking for? No yes vote for you. And so now you have Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, saying that it's uncertain whether the military alliance will be able to overcome Turkey's opposition to membership for Finland and Sweden. NATO was hoping to swiftly admit the new members, but Turkey blocked the move, demanding that Finland and Sweden stop harboring members of the separatist Kurdistan Workers' Party, PKK, and imposing arms embargoes on Ankara. In an interview with the news website Politico on Wednesday, Stoltenberg was asked whether he felt he was being held hostage by Turkey as NATO needs the support of all 30 members to accept a new country. Quote, we have a system where we are based on consensus. That's the way we make decisions in NATO. Then there will often be a situation where one or a few allies disagree with the rest. And then we need to overcome this, the NATO chief said. Stoltenberg praised Turkey as a country of great importance for our alliance due to its key role in fighting terrorism and its geographical position on the Black Sea and bordering Iraq and Syria. So when they raise concerns, of course, we have to sit down and then address those concerns. And that's exactly what we now are consulting on. And then I hope that we can find a solution to allow Finland and Sweden to become members as soon as possible, the Secretary General said. So they're still trying, and there's still a possibility that they may be able to convince Turkey, convince Erdogan to give that yes vote. But time is ticking. The conference is only a few days away, and I don't think that NATO is going to come up with the goods in order to sway Turkey to give that yes vote. So most likely, what we're going to see is we are going to see Finland and Sweden get pushed back to the next NATO meeting with regards to their entrance into the alliance. This is a massive embarrassment for the political class in Finland and in Sweden. A massive, massive embarrassment. They have completely destroyed the veneer, the facade of neutrality. They've thrown that out the window. They've chosen sides. Their reputation now as neutral countries in Europe is completely gone. The curtain has been pulled, and they've been exposed as NATO, collective West, US puppets, globalist puppets. And what did they get in return? Absolutely nothing. And now Russia is on to them, and Russia is going to start to take the actions that they need to take in order to prepare for possible aggressive actions by Finland and by Sweden. So now Russia is also going to be breathing down the necks of Finland and Sweden. So this was a disastrous, an absolutely disastrous political move by Finland and Sweden. And let's now talk about what's going on in Ukraine, since I mentioned the word disaster. What is happening in Ukraine and what is happening to the Ukraine military and to the Zelensky regime is disastrous. Defense Politics Asia, Military Summary, The New Atlas, Jacob Dreisen, Larry Johnson, Andrei Martyanov. I'm sure I'm missing some other military analyst sites. Alexander Mercouris, he always gets it right when it comes to military analysis. The great Robert Barnes, he always gets things right when it comes to military analysis. Anyway, there's a lot of people who are former military, are just excellent analysts, are interested in the military affairs, are experts in the region. There are a lot of people who are analyzing this, and they've gotten it right. And go to their channels, go to their blogs or websites, and I think you'll get a much more detailed view as to the disaster that is taking place in Donbass. I've heard 2, 3, possibly even 4 cauldrons forming or have already been formed and closed off. You've got Severodonetsk, you've got Lysychansk now, which is near completion of being encircled. You've got the Zolote cauldron, which is encircled, and you have 2,000 men trapped in there. I hear you have another 5,000 in the other cauldrons. And while some cauldrons are not completely closed off, as the Ukraine military is trying to retreat, say, towards Lysychansk and further, they are getting annihilated. And if they're not getting annihilated, that means that they're having to leave their equipment and their artillery and just run into the forest and in the woods in order to escape. And the Russian military and the Donetsk and Lugansk militias are picking up the artillery and the weapons. And this is a complete collapse. We are seeing a complete disaster as the Russian military moves towards the Bakhmut highway, which is a very important supply line, and they move towards a complete encirclement of Lysychansk. you are seeing the, I thought it was going to be the slow, but maybe the quick collapse of the Ukraine military on the Donbass front. And even the Western mainstream media is unable to hide this anymore, and they're talking about this complete collapse. Once again, if you want to see some of the maps or some of the details about what's going on, go to those channels, and they're going to describe everything in much more detail. They will also, many of the channels will also describe this Ukraine counteroffensive that they're trying right now in the Zaporozhye region, the Zaporozhye city region, where Ukraine is trying to make a counteroffensive through Pavlovka. I mentioned this yesterday, through Pavlovka and Yegorovka, and they would like to somehow create the impression, the illusion that they're making a play towards Zaporozhye and Mariupol. And this is what many analysts are saying, that this is more of a PR illusionary counteroffensive than one of real substance. And this counteroffensive, from what I gather, and this is just from the accounts that I've been looking at and researching, has already stalled. So the Ukraine military did make some headway in this village of like 1,200 people in Pavlovka. They did make some gains on the flanks, but then they tried to drive in deeper. And I mean, I've been hearing that this may have been some sort of trap. I'm not 100% on that, but some analysts are saying that this was a trap to allow the Ukraine military to make some headway in areas that were really not that contested, and then as they funneled into the Pavlovka, Yegorovka region, I believe it's the region of Ugledor. God, I hope I'm getting those names right. Anyway, as they were trying to move into this region, it looks like the Donbass militia and the Russian army got to them, and they completely stopped this progression, stopped this counteroffensive dead in its tracks. That's my understanding. The Ugledar offensive grouping, they were allowed, by some accounts, to push the Allied garrison out of Pavlovka and then to proceed in column formation to Yegorovka in order to develop early success. Evidently, the Ukraine units were given an order to take Yegorovka by 8:30 a.m. on June 23rd. This may have been intended as a publicity coup to claim rapid success in the direction of Volnovka, Mariupol, to distract from the Bakhmutka, Cauldron, and the developing Lysychansk, Severodonetsk catastrophe. The column did not make it to Yegorovka. It looks like it will not make it anywhere. The Allied troops, when this analysis refers to the Allied troops as Russia and Donbass, the Allied troops and Chechnya, the Allied troops clearly were ready for this development. And I have an inkling that the Pavlovka withdrawal was a trap laid to invite adventurism from the Ukrainians so as to eliminate the Ugledar offensive grouping once and for all. I'm not 100% on that. I'm just giving you what I've researched and what many military accounts are now saying about this counteroffensive. Once again, a failed Ukraine counteroffensive. As Jacob Dreisen noted on a live stream that we did with him about a week and a half ago, the last successful counteroffensive that the Ukraine military conducted was in 2014, I believe. That was the date that Jacob Dreisen put out there. Every other counteroffensive that the Ukraine military has tried, from the war with Donbass in 2014-15 all the way to this conflict with Russia, they have all been failures. And it looks like this one is no exception. So that is what is going on in Donbass and with the military situation there. And sooner or later. I'm starting to think maybe sooner, but we'll see. The Donbass Ukraine military will collapse, and then we are going to be looking at what will be the next phase, I imagine. Is it going to be Kharkov? Is it going to be Kharkov and Odessa? Is it going to be Kharkov, Odessa, Nikolaev? We will wait and see, but things are rapidly collapsing in the Donbass. That's my take on it. I could be wrong, but that's my take on it. Once again, I urge everybody who is watching this to go look at some other analysts who are doing more in-depth, more detailed work with regards to the military situation in the Donbass. But that's my overall summary of things. With that said, let's do a clown world. And this is an interesting clown world. This is a clown world retraction. That is what this is. A clown world retraction. And it has to do with the now famous, the infamous words of the Ukraine ambassador to Germany when he called the Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, a sulky liver sausage. I always say a sultry liver sausage. That would be equally embarrassing, but he called Olaf Scholz a sulky liver sausage, and the Ukraine ambassador to Germany has been ridiculing, making fun of Germany ever since. It seems almost on a daily or weekly basis that the Ukraine ambassador to Germany is poking fun at Scholz and his administration, and he is making fun of the German government and the German institutions. And every time he pokes fun at Olaf Scholz and the German government, he then asks for money and military hardware. So this has been an ongoing theme from the Ukraine ambassador in Germany. But we have a clown show retraction where the Ukraine ambassador has now stated that he regrets calling German Chancellor Olaf Scholz a sulky liver sausage. Or if you go by my interpretation, a sultry liver sausage. Ukraine's ambassador to Germany, Andrei Melnik, has revealed he regrets calling the country's Chancellor Olaf Scholz an offended liverwurst. That's the translation that this article is using, an offended liverwurst back in May. The diplomat made the admission while speaking to German newspaper Der Spiegel on Wednesday. That's a statement that I regretted later, of course. I apologize to Scholz personally, Melnik said. The fact that you have the Ukraine ambassador in Germany, who on a daily basis has been poking fun, making fun of Olaf Scholz and Germany, now coming out and apologizing for his past statements, specifically the statement that kicked it all off, calling the Chancellor a liver sausage. The fact that he's apologizing for that, what does that tell you? That tells you that things are really, really bad for Ukraine. That is the clown world retraction from the Ukraine ambassador to Germany. He has now apologized to Olaf Scholz. Let's see if he refrains from making fun of the Chancellor and of Germany going forward. Let's see if he has learned his lesson. And we will leave it there. That'll be the video. Check out Alexandra's channel. Check out the Duran's channel. Go to the Duran.locals.com. I am signing off from Athens, Greece. Take care.